What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So it wasn't too long ago that we had taken a look at this terrible looking Nintendo Switch game on the eShop that was clearly ripping off a certain title from PlayStation. Well, while we were all laughing at it, turns out not everyone was, because the game itself is removed from the eShop and turns out Sony might have had something to do with it. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about last generation systems, as it looks like another big title is actually getting ported back to the PS4 and the Xbox One. Oh, and we also have an update for the Transformers situation where it seemed like Hasbro was pushing that Activision had lost the source code. Turns out that might not be the case. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure to hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. We're gonna start today with Xbox Game Pass games for the month of August, kicking off the month with a couple of titles going into the service. We can see this over on news.xbox.com. We'll start at the top with Celeste. That is available right now, cloud, console, and PC. Awesome game, recommend checking it out. Moving to August 3rd, so tomorrow, we have A Short Hike, that's cloud, console, and PC. August 8th, Broforce Forever, cloud, console, and PC. Moving to August 9th, we have Limbo, cloud, console, and PC. Limbo is a pretty awesome game. I would definitely recommend that one. Airborne Kingdom, this is August 10th, cloud, console, and PC. Then August 15th, we have Everspace 2, cloud, and Xbox Series X and S. I have not tried Everspace 2. Let me know down below in the comments if it's a good game. But then also I want to point out some of the titles that are leaving August 15th. That includes Death Stranding. Remember, that's on PC specifically. Edge of Eternity, Midnight Fight Express, and Total War Warhammer 3. So kind of a lighter start to the month here, but obviously all eyes right now are on Starfield, and that's coming up pretty quick in September, but definitely recommend checking out at least Celeste and Limbo. Also, we had briefly talked about the spiritual successor to Patapon, which was the rhythm game that I remember playing a bit of on the PSP. Well, there is kind of a cult following to the series, and considering Sony's not really doing it anymore, well, the original creator went off and wanted to crowdfund basically another Patapon, but this one being called Ratatan. Well, they were going through Kickstarter, and we can take a look at the page here. Yeah, in about a day, it crossed its goal of $140,000, and in fact, it's now up over $450,000. Still has 30 days to go, so typically I don't really talk much about too many Kickstarters before they reach their goal, but in this case, I mean, you can kind of sit back and see how things go, although they do have, I believe, a bunch of stretch goals and other things that they're adding in, so it seems like they have the backing here to make this a reality, and who knows, they might even be able to get publishing and other things from other larger companies, considering there is obvious interest in there being a spiritual successor to Patapon. But definitely good news for fans of the series, as it looks like you will be getting Ratatan, again, provided everything gets delivered here. But for the most part, the funding, the people behind it, I'm expecting it to come out eventually. Oh, and we did have another controller announced by Microsoft. Hey, one thing you can't take away from Xbox, very, very good in their accessories department and creating new controllers to check out. And we can see this over on the news.xbox.com. This is the Stormcloud Vapor Special Edition controller. And this apparently has a theme attached to it. So when you pair it to an Xbox, it will then have that theme unlocked, which kind of goes along with just the design of the controller. You see kind of the Stormcloud setup there. And it is going for $69.99. It is available right now. So I know there's the joke of them just having nothing but controllers and stuff versus how many games they put out. But hey, look at it this way. We are coming up on Starfield, and we have Forza coming up, and probably by the time Call of Duty comes out, the Activision Blizzard acquisition will have closed. So technically, Microsoft has 3 big games coming up here, so sure, why not throw out another controller? And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Sony striking down a game on the Nintendo Switch eShop. At least that's certainly how it's appearing, because they did at least strike down videos and trailers for this game, and that's, as you guessed, The Last Hope, which is a terrible looking Last of Us ripoff. I've seen many people do videos on it now, with Sean really talking to me about it at one point before, I guess it became popular really to show it off, but then Digital Foundry took a look at it and it just kind of blew up online. There was the pricing, like, was discounted down heavily to, I think, less than, what, £1, because I believe it was specifically on sale in the UK eShop. Well, now it's just completely gone. In fact, you can see over on Eurogamer, they had screenshots of the eShop that just shows the 404 page there with Peppy hanging out. I remember originally it was kind of the setup for the Last Hope. And now, if you look at the trailer, it actually says the video is no longer available due to a copyright claim by Sony Interactive Entertainment, which, the unfortunate part about all of this, I guess, is we're probably not going to see the studio's upcoming releases like Hatchet and Plank or Days Found, or probably my favorite one, God of War Zone, which is basically just God of War with a battle pass and the need to be babysat 90 hours a week. The thing I'm kind of curious about here, though, is I guess what would warrant a strike, not only for the trailer, but apparently the game? I mean, unless they decide to pull the game themselves after having their video or their trailer struck by Sony and pulled down, maybe, but I don't know, it all kind of correlates together, obviously, where Sony would go out of the way to get that all pulled down. And are there assets used in this game from The Last of Us? I mean, if that's the case, then sure, Sony could, I guess, make a claim for it, but in this case, you kind of look at it almost as a parody, and they could probably make that case because the game was bad enough to where it was kind of funny, right? So they say, oh, we were just kind of making fun of the source material, The Last Hope, and I mean, you see the character models, how janky the whole thing is, and the fact that they were selling it for $1. They could play off the fact that, oh, this isn't a serious thing. We're just kind of having fun. So I don't know. I need some takes here from, I guess, the experts when it comes to copyright law and stuff. Is this something that Sony would be in the right to do? Have this completely pulled down from the eShop because they think, oh, it's close enough? Because I don't think the idea itself is enough, right? Otherwise, hey, you might as well strike down Days Gone at the same time. No, but that's kind of the thing here is I don't know if, from what we know currently from the outside looking in, if there'd be enough to strike all this down. But who knows? Maybe it comes out down the road that there were assets or audio or really any little thing that Sony can latch onto to rip this whole thing down. But yeah, at this time, it seems that Sony comes in, claims, and rips down the trailers, and then the game follows suit. So we'll see if there's any follow-up to this one, as Eurogamer had the initial report. Maybe they can reach out to the studio, since they did quite a bit of coverage for it in their recent video and really analysis of the game. Next up, let's talk about a story that brought about a lot of frustration online, and this had to do with some of the older Activision Transformer games from the Xbox 360. Big one for me would be War for Cybertron. Awesome title. I would like to see it come back in some way, a re-release or really backwards compatibility, anything at this point, just a way to get it back out there for people to play, because even on PC, the game was pulled from Steam, so you have to kind of roll the dice with third-party codes that may or may not work. But one of the big follow-ups was that apparently Activision Blizzard wasn't sure where the source code was. Hasbro had said, or at least representatives from Hasbro had said that the Activision isn't sure which hard drive it's on, which sounds ridiculous, and well, it turns out it's because it is. We can see this posted by Lulu over on, well, X now, but Lulu is the CCO and EVP of Corporate Affairs Activision Blizzard, who says these headlines are wrong. We have the code. It's not lost and never was. And then we had Stephen Totillo with a report of his own saying, I asked Activision if War for or Fall of Cybertron were lost. They sent a Hasbro rep my way who told me and Axios to clarify comments that suggest Transformers games have been lost were made in error. We apologize to Activision and regret any confusion. It is kind of funny because Activision basically tapped Hasbro and was like, go fix this. We didn't lose it technically. Like it's around here somewhere. Although I'm not really sure why representatives at Hasbro would have said that unless they, I mean, genuinely believed it, or they were trying to maybe drum up the news cycle for these games, because, I mean, they're removed from Steam and others, like, there is licensing involved. Like, if Microsoft, say, they get Activision Blizzard, they go looking for them, they find the games, we'll say, like it's in there somewhere, they would still have to go to Hasbro, I assume, for licensing and pay some kind of money there. So it's not like a free slam dunk transaction for Microsoft in the first place to get them on Game Pass. But for Hasbro, hey, it's more money. So why not see if people are interested in this and get people talking about like War for Cybertron or Fall of Cybertron. So I would still like to see this. I think it would be a good move for Microsoft to get the servers working and get these games in the Game Pass, because obviously a lot of people are interested, but strange move there from Hasbro. If anything, after all of this is done, I hope we just get these games back up and running and available for more people, because that was during, I think, kind of the golden era of multiplayer games, especially with the Xbox 360, and I'd like to kind of relive some of that nostalgia again. Next up, let's talk about EA and a game that is being ported to last generation systems from the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series, and well, the game might surprise you a bit because it had quite a few issues at launch on current platforms. Now we're talking about the Xbox One VCR from 2013. But first, let's take a look this over on Yahoo. Electronic Arts did report their most recent fiscal quarter, saying they managed to beat analyst expectations of $1.59 billion in revenue for the first quarter of the company's 2024 fiscal year, revealing a $1.92 billion haul. That's quite the beat there for EA. Now, they did talk about how they were able to do this, and specifically they say we had a strong start to the fiscal year with net bookings growth of 21% year over year, highlighted by new releases, continued live services growth, healthy engagement, and new player acquisition. This was from the EA CFO, Stuart Canfield. Looking ahead, our teams remain focused on delivering long-term growth and profitability. Now, during the call, we also had EA CEO Andrew Wilson chime in, saying EA delivered a record Q1 driven by strong momentum in EA Sports, global football, and Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Our exceptional teams are creating innovative entertainment experiences across our multi-year pipeline, starting with the highly anticipated culture-defining titles Madden 24 and EA Sports FC 24. So I do like that they're citing a completely single-player game that feels like a game and not some crazy live service thing that's trying to be jammed into a single-player title with a battle pass for no reason and always online connections. So it is good to see success there, even though it had so many issues at launch. They have been working constantly on it is constant with patches for this game, and I'd say it's in a much better place now than it was when it first came out, but it still feels like they have work to do, which is why it was surprising to me, and I'm sure many people online, when we found out that Jedi Survivor is getting ported to the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. We can see this posted up by The Verge as Andrew Wilson discussed this a bit, saying, thanks to the strength of this legendary franchise and community demand, our development team has committed to bringing this Jedi experience to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. They didn't really talk much more about that, just like, hey, we're doing it. It's going to those older platforms, which it's going to be interesting to see. Now, we have seen studios and publishers still kind of keep an eye on the Xbox One and the PS4, like Resident Evil 4 Remake. That did get moved to the PS4, and that was like a later announcement, if you remember. We already knew it was on other platforms, and then like, oh yeah, it's also going to the PlayStation 4. So I guess these publishers still have data saying that, yeah, people are playing these games on Xbox One and PS4, and to be fair, EA would have that kind of data because they still release a lot of their annual sports titles on those older platforms. They kind of know the numbers, and maybe they think that there's still just a bit more juice to squeeze out of that generation. And I guess if they can make it work, there you go. Jedi Survivor will appear on the Xbox One VCR at, I'm sure, some crazy low resolution or something and some very inconsistent frame rates, but it will be there. And maybe just their work on optimizing it for last generation, maybe that will work to improve what they have available for the PS5, the Xbox Series, and PC. I'm hoping so, because the game is actually really, really good. It's just hard to recommend it with all the technical issues that were there at launch. So here's hoping they get that worked out, along with a good port At which point it's like, yeah, check it out, because the title itself, the game structure, is like top tier stuff. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a bit of a surprising update, one that I wasn't really expecting, and it has to do with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and a skateboarding sim. You can see the trailer for it here. This is for Session. If you're unaware, that's kind of like the Skater XL or Skate style game where it's much more involved than something like Tony Hawk Pro Skater. This is interesting because it looks like there is a free update that's available right now that kind of inserts the Ninja Turtles into the game, and well, it's an interesting looking mod, I guess, or update, because the eyes for the turtles are memorable. Like they will stick in your mind after you see it. Yeah, not exactly a game known for great visuals or representation of the skateboarder themselves, but I mean, the game technically takes place at sort of a ground level as you're skateboarding around, but it's, I guess that's one collaboration for them. It's interesting that this was the path that Mutant Mayhem wanted to go for a TMNT crossover with skateboarding, although they haven't had the best luck because the other Turtle skateboarding crossover was Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5, and that was a whole thing on its own. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, have you backed a video game on Kickstarter or other crowdfunding before? Okay, 3% say yes, I've backed a bunch of them. 20%, I've backed only one or two. And then just 77% say no, I've never backed a crowdfunded game. I did back the Wonderful 101 just because I figured, okay, it's platinum, they'll probably get this thing out. But I understand people being apprehensive of backing these different games because we have had many that just kind of disappear or don't live up to the hype that they tried to build to make sure that they hit that initial funding goal. Because let's face it, that's the biggest thing they want to do, make a lot of promises, and then, well, we can cut back on them or deliver like half-baked products. But when you see stuff like Psychonauts 2 that did come out of an initial just crowdfunding campaign, it does give you hope for some of these. And when you hear that it's like the original creator and they have legit talent behind it, you see something like Ratatan that actually gets a lot of interest and a lot of money thrown their way. So I am hoping that Ratatan comes out and it's what Patapon fans have wanted to see with a spiritual successor, but for now, I'll hang out on the sidelines and see how it turns out. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Exocade. It says, remember when Spawnwave wore glasses? You should do that for Halloween. I do have glasses as well still. I got new ones, but it's easier for contacts when it comes to recording so that I don't have any glares or anything with lights around me, nothing like that. But in that case, it's not a bad idea just to randomly show up one day with glasses on, just to keep everyone guessing. Maybe I'll save for Halloween, or who knows, maybe just a random Tuesday or something. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Today was The Last Hope disappearing off of the eShop, videos being pulled down by Sony. Do you think this is something that Sony wanted to get done because they didn't like the way the game looked, or is there more to the story? And then also, what about Jedi Survivor being ported, I guess, backwards to the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One? How do you think that game's gonna turn out there? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.